Guys, welcome back to the Macro Golf Podcast. Great episode for you today because we're going to try and tie up everything we've been speaking about on the first few episodes, and we're going to basically link this all together and actually talk about habits and how you put all of this amazing information we've given you guys into practice. So what actually do you need to do on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis to actually put this stuff into practice and start putting it to work. So that is the plan for today, and I'm hoping that off of the back of today's podcast you can walk away and actually put some of this stuff into action and start actually planning out what you need to do to get yourself to the next level. Sam, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. How are you doing? How's your week been?
All good, thank you. Yeah, all good. I've got to get some practice in for golf actually.
Yeah.
Because we have entered a pro-am with a guy who is the pro here at Hartsbourne, Mark. So we're going to play in a pro-am at my home club, which means I need to practice. So I'm keen to listen to these habits today and see what I need to put in practice to cram this together for the next, I think we're playing in 10 days time. So 10 days intense practice for me. So that's where my focus is going to be for the next week. So how about yourself? Have you played at all, practiced at all, trained at all?
Got out yesterday for 9 holes, played okay. What's interesting about habits is it's something that I've had to integrate a few new ones day to day in the last kind of 6 months since I had my slip disc in my back. I've never really had daily mobility habits, so it's definitely one thing that I've found over the last 6 months that I've been paying attention to, and it's made a massive difference now. Like playing pain-free, training pain-free, which is fantastic. So they do make a great difference, and I'm quite looking forward to dive into habits. I think they're a real game changer for people. It's one of those kind of life hacks that if you can get some good habits in, it doesn't really take too much discipline or time, and you can see a massive change over however long.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to get at today as well is like, we can preach what's perfect. We can say, you need to do this amount of training, you need to do this amount of speed training, this amount of whatever it is, but realistically, how does that fit into your daily life? Because whether you're a pro golfer with practice considerations, travel considerations, whether you're an amateur golfer with work commitments, family commitments, other things going on, you're going to try and find a way to squeeze this into what is already going to be a busy schedule, right? Not many of us can just squeeze, our golf fitness and make that the most important thing
that number
life,
one
right?
priority.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're going to always have to try and squeeze this in around somewhere. And I always say to people, like, a big part of what I believe I can help people do in my one-to-one coaching is find these ways around it. As you said, find these little hacks, find these ways to get this stuff done without it taking up all of your life.
Without it taking up a lot of time and without it feeling like it takes too much discipline or motivation to do. I think that's when these little things are really, really handy.
I'd love to do a podcast actually separately on discipline and motivation. I think that'd be a really cool one to do because I actually spoke recently with the Golf Fitness School guys about this. Like, what is the difference between being motivated and being disciplined? And I think habits link very, very closely to those two terms.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Motivation's always going to run out. Being disciplined is a different kettle of fish.
Agreed. And making it as easy as possible for yourself to get that in the way. Whether those habits are good, whether those habits are bad, how do they stick? So we've obviously discussed mobility. We've discussed strength training, speed training. We've discussed warming up. We've discussed
weight loss. We've done weight loss
in terms of like nutrition and that type of stuff. So all of these things require you basically taking actions into your life, whether that's some kind of interventional change, whether it's getting rid of a bad habit or introducing a good habit, basically to then get to an end result, right? Like, we're believing that if we do this habit for long enough, then it's going to get us to this end point. So my question to you, Sam, is like, when you start with an individual who might have a lot of bad habits in terms of maybe nutrition or whatever it is, and they're lacking good habits, where do you start? Like, where do you try and make the first ground, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So obviously, if we've already identified potential bad habits that they might have, we'd try to talk about, right, what positive habits are we going to try to create? Whether that's hitting a step target goal, whether that's doing a mobility flow, whatever that could be, we're going to try and spin those negative habits and try and find some positive ones. after we've done that, after we found the positive ones, I'd probably try to set some goals. If you can't track it, you're not going to measure it, you're probably going to fail. So how can we actually measure these goals? So obviously, like with steps, you say, right, if someone had been doing 3,000 steps a day, if they've been working from home, how can we up that to say 7,000 steps? Right, that's easy. We can measure it, whether you've got a wearable on the watch, whether it's on your phone. We've pretty much all got access to that. Right, once we can measure it, we can see, right, have you been achieving it? Have you not been achieving it? Maybe the goal's been a little bit too unrealistic. I always like to, with kind of developing positive habits, of actually making sure the goal's realistic. There's no point saying to someone that's doing 3,000 steps a day, right, all of a sudden I want you to hit 15,000 steps a day. It's not going to happen. You've gone from eating 3,000 calories, let's cut that down to 2,000. It's just unrealistic. So small goals on the way to possibly a slightly bigger goal. Once we've identified the goals, then we probably need to identify specific behaviours to get to that habit. And probably that's when motivation, discipline comes into it, without getting too sidetracked there. Little steps. Identify the positive ones we want first. Can we measure it? Is it realistic? And then putting a plan in place to get there.
So I think the biggest thing to take from that is starting small, right? Trying to create a new habit by going from, like you said, like at the moment you might be eating 10,000 calories a day and you want to eat 2,000 calories a day. Like it's a big jump, right? Let's maybe start with 8. Let's make a small change, get that ingrained, and then build on that. So actually starting small and being able to, I suppose, get some initial success.
Yeah,
with
get the ball rolling, because I think a lot of the time that if you're setting a goal and people start failing, then they're just not going to try any harder, right? If you can set a small goal that's really realistic, right, now we can go, right, you're up to 5,000 steps a day, perfect, now let's try 7. Within a couple of months, you might be up to that 12,000, up to that 10,000, but you haven't gone there initially. You've built up some positive reinforcements before you've kind of got to that goal.
Yeah, I think it also helps you like overcome some initial barriers that are obviously going to be there as well. Like if you try and go from 3,000 steps a day to 10,000 steps a day, for example.
It seems daunting.
Yeah, it seems daunting, and there's going to be a reason why you're not doing 10,000 steps at the moment,
Yeah.
right? There's going to be a reason of, either you can't be bothered, you've got no motivation, discipline, or you haven't got the time, or other things are getting in the way. So just moving from 3,000 to 4,000 or 4,000 to 5,000, you can kind of understand what one thing you need to change to get over that, make that progress, and then build from there. And I think that analogy goes for weight loss, that goes for strength training, it goes for mobility, it goes for everything, right? So would you explain to that individual, that client, whoever it was, like, would you explain to them, look, we just need to get these habits right and then the rest will take care of itself? Or do you find that people are quite a little bit more end goal driven and then kind of reverse engineer from there? Like, do you see what I mean? Like, do we go, don't worry about anything, just get 10,000 steps a day. Yeah. Don't worry about, like, or you're saying, like, right, we need to increase your overall activity level because of X, Y, and Z. So the way we're going to do that is by doing this, this, and this. Like, what response do you get from clients when you go from one way or the other?
I've probably done both, and earlier on in my career, I probably started the other way around. So I said, right, this is where we want to get to. Then say, right, this is how we can get to it. For now, if you can get clients just to worry about small things, just worry about 1 or 2 things, eventually, without them even thinking about it, they're already taking steps towards their goals. And all of a sudden they go, oh God, I'm doing this. I feel so much better. As soon as you're there, they go, right, yeah, let's up the ante a little bit. But I definitely feel like focusing on little steps along the way, you get much more adherence from clients. That's personally what I work on now with clients. It's small steps along the way, and we will get to the end goal eventually.
I think also it has like less like self-built barriers. If, like, say for example, weight loss is a great example because a lot of people have tried weight loss and failed, or breaking a handicap is another one as well. Like, people have been like, well, whatever. If you say, right, we're going to get down to we're going to lose 5 stone, right? Or we're going to try and get your handicap down to scratch or whatever it is. People always say, like, yeah, I don't know if that's possible because of X, or I don't know if it's possible because of Y. And they've always got pre-built things in them that's making it believe that they can't do that for whatever reason because they've failed in the past. Whereas if we just say, well, actually, we're just going to do this one habit, is that doable? Then, like, yeah, actually, I can just do that. Okay, just be consistent with that for however long, and let's see what result we get off the back of that. Yeah. Right? So it's almost like you're taking away that the possible negativity that they've tried and failed before with that end goal, and actually saying, right, forget about that. Let's just get this one habit solidified and in that you can manage and that you can do, and then let's see what result we get off the back of that. So it's more, there's less friction for people when they see it just as a habit rather than seeing it as an end target, if that makes sense. A good one, a great example for that is mobility for me. Like, I use this example all the time for people. People say they don't have time to train or they don't have time for whatever. One of my favourite things to do for people in terms of making it easy and breaking it down is just saying, I just want you to lay on the floor in the evenings in front of the TV.
Yeah.
Is that doable? Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
Like, literally, just get off the sofa, just lay on the floor, 10 minutes, and just watch what happens, right?
Yeah.
Funnily enough, they lay on the floor and they're looking around, and then suddenly they start moving their legs a little bit,
Yeah.
start waggling their legs left and right, and they start fiddling around. They might do a little bit of stretching,
Yeah.
like they might do a little bit of something. Is that our absolute optimal mobility target? No.
Is it realistic?
Yeah.
There we go.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Like, that is, there's no barriers of like, if we say, right, we're going to get you onto a mobility plan, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and everyone's like, whoa, like, I don't know if I've got time for that, I don't know if I've got this. Can you lay on the floor for 10 minutes in front of the TV? Yeah, right, let's stop there.
Yeah.
Once you do that, then we say maybe we go down and maybe do something a little bit more structured when we're there. But breaking that initial, like, I can't do that, I think with a small habit is very useful.
Absolutely agreed. I really like that one. Anything that can be done kind of in front of the TV and doesn't feel like it takes a lot of discipline to stop doing something else is fantastic, right?
Yep.
And mobility is something you can easily do in front of the TV. Most of my clients in the evenings annoy their partners and get in the way of the TV because they're doing all this funky mobility stuff. But it's perfect time because it doesn't take a lot of discipline, doesn't need a lot of motivation, and you feel fantastic after you've done it.
Yeah, and it's actually just, you actually feel better than just sitting on the sofa.
Yeah,
like, you
absolutely.
actually get up and you feel better. And I think anything we can do just to break, because I suppose we're doing two things there. We're breaking the bad habit of being sat on the sofa watching the TV, right?
Yep.
Which is also then going to link and stack to other habits of having snacks or
Yep.
having a beer or doing whatever it is.
Yeah.
Where we're less likely to do that again if we're laying on the floor. We've broken something and introduced a good habit in a situation that typically would be a festing ground for a bad habit.
Yeah.
So maybe if we cover all of the what we think is the big, our big habits, right? Like, if we're thinking we've gone over mobility,
Yep.
we've briefly touched on that. We've gone over strength training, speed, nutrition, warming up. Maybe if we take it one by one and start to actually lay out what these habits,
What that
might
looks
look
like in real life.
I think that'd be really
Yeah.
useful for people, right? So strength training is probably your main area of like interest and what excites you the most. So how do we go through that process? Like, if we've got someone who now doesn't strength train
Yep.
or do any training,
Yep.
for example, how do we, what's that first initial step? And then what are we aiming to get to?
Well, we're aiming them to get to, depending how many sessions we're aiming to, say we're aiming to train twice a week. We're aiming to get you into the gym twice a week, whether that's with a coach, without a coach. We're just trying to get them into the gym, completing the sessions, and then bang, they can go on and finish the rest of their day. How do we create that change? How do we get those into those habits? My first thing is always, especially if it like I said, it always depends. My famous line depends on the client themselves. We might have someone that really loves doing strength training, and actually it's really easy to get them into the gym. Probably, if we're talking about habits, it's going to be someone that might not. Well, there's always that client that finds an excuse not to do it. There's always something easier to do or better to do, and it's true. There's been a lot of studies show that the longer you leave your workouts to do the later on in the day, the more likely are that you're not going to do that workout. So right, is it something that we need to look at the schedule? And we go, right, can we fit that in earlier on in the day before XYZ builds up in work? Can we get it on in the morning? Can we actually say, right, we're actually just going to do half an hour. We're not going to do a full 45 minutes or an hour session, an hour and a half, whatever that might be. Can we just get half an hour into the day? Hopefully most people have that, and then we can go, right, same thing like we did with the steps. We're slowly increasing it. Hopefully I've done my job and programmed some exciting workouts, so then they're actually enjoying it, and then they see the progress, right? They see themselves getting stronger, whether that's aesthetically and how they look, or the weight's going down, or they might be hitting the ball slightly further, swinging the club faster, and then perfect, we've got some results, we've got some positive reinforcements to then up the ante a little bit. But it's breaking them down into kind of chilled bites, so it doesn't feel like a big mountain that they've got to climb to get into the gym.
So we're taking the perfect scenario, which is whatever we would deem as like, you know, the perfect programming.
Yeah.
And then we're saying, right, this is where we want to get to, but what can we do to make this manageable in the short term? So maybe, I think you mentioned there, like decreasing the time of the session.
Decreasing the time of the session,
decreasing maybe the frequency of the session, so
Yeah.
reducing how many sessions you're actually going to get done. We might want them to be doing 3 a week, but let's start with 1, just, you know,
Yeah.
because of time constraint, whatever it is. Maybe home workout.
Home workout, yeah.
Instead of needing to travel to the gym,
Yeah.
take that barrier away. Like, there's so many things that we can do of, like, we're not saying that these things are going to be better than the actual...
No, it's not optimal.
Like, no, exactly, but it's...
But it's better than anything else. And if that long term can get us to where we want to be, that's what we need. We need some sort of habit breaker to change us into the right direction. And like always, something is better than nothing.
Don't let progress get in the way of perfection.
There we go.
That's the one. So, nice. Strength training, in that case then, give me an example. What would be the typical golfer listening to this? What would be the habit that you want them to adopt? If we're talking optimal, where do they need to get to and how do we build them up to that? Let's cover strength training first.
What's optimal? It depends on what we're talking about, in season, off season, the client, where they're at.
That's a hard question, man. I feel bad for that.
It's a really tough question.
Let's say,
because there's no right answer.
Yeah, let's say
completely
some kind of strength training
needs
to be done.
Yeah, at least once, twice a week.
1 to 4 times a week.
Absolutely.
1 to 4 times.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to say habit number 1. Let's actually list these out. This might be pretty cool. Let's list these out. Habit number 1, some kind of strength work.
Yeah.
1 to 4 times.
1 to 4 times a week. Absolutely.
Love that. Habit 1, tick. Stick that in your diary. Let's talk mobility.
Joe, the mobility expert.
Again, depends.
Yeah.
Massively depends.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of just doing 10 minutes a day. I think if you can do 10 minutes a day, you're done. Like, it doesn't need to be anything more than that. It doesn't need to be anything more complex than that. If you're getting 10 minutes of good work done, that's more than enough. If you can't do 10 minutes, do 5. If you can't do 5 minutes, do 1. If you can't do 1 minute, get a massage ball onto your foot under a desk and massage your foot out. Like, there's always something you can do, right? I don't know, you can do some torso rotations while sat in the toilet. I don't know, something, right? There's always something we can do. You've always got an opportunity. My go-to habit is obviously going to be 10 minutes a day of movement, if possible. But again, we're taking optimal, and we're saying that optimal might be for this individual 10 minutes a day, working on servicing their body. But if they can't do those 10 minutes, we just regress back. Can you do 5 minutes? Can you do 1 minute? Can you just lay on the ground in front of the TV for 5 minutes, like we said? There's always going to be something you can do that's going to move you forward in terms of being able to increase the way that you move and the quality of movement that you have. So if we're saying that for strength training is, 1 to 4 times a week, we're going to do some kind of strength work, then I think if I was to put a target on the mobility, I would say every day do at least a few minutes of good quality movement, taking your body through a good range of motion or servicing your body with some kind of massage or manipulation. Like, if you can do that, I think you're in a pretty good spot. As you said, like, it depends always on the individual times of year, what's their training volume like, what's their capacity like, what's their current range of motion like. If their current range of motion is good, then we're not going to be worrying too much about increasing range of motion, we're going to improve quality of tissue, we're going to do a lot of stuff, whatever. But if we're just talking about habit, can you spend a couple of minutes a day working on the way you move? As an example, we came in this morning to the studio. We both sat on the floor for like 10 minutes.
Didn't even realise.
Fucking, probably, like, without even realising, I was opening up my hips. Right? That was just my go-to. I drove here.
Yeah.
My hips felt a bit tight. Actually, I went and sat downstairs and had coffee for an hour. So that was like a 45 minutes drive in. Sat downstairs for an hour. Got up here. My hips were tight. We went on our laptops and I was on the floor opening up my hips. It's not weird. Like, it's cool. Sometimes we talk to each other and just drop into a deep squat. It's not a big deal. But it's basically just, that's an opportunity of creating some movement.
Yeah.
It then doesn't matter today if I don't do some like 10 minutes of structured mobility, right? Yeah. I've developed a habit that just throughout the day I will move my body through positions.
Yeah.
I think if we're going to say habit number 2, that would be habit number 2. Like, move your body into positions or do some manipulation or some self massage for a few minutes a day, every day, where possible.
Absolutely.
Habit 2, tick. Let's talk overall movement, like steps and overall activity level, because I think it's something that often gets left behind in the golf fitness kind of world. Yeah. But we need to consider that most amateur golfers probably have some kind of work commitment that requires them to be sedentary, either in a car or train or desk or whatever. What would you suggest for a golfer that maybe plays once or twice a week and gets out and gets a lot of steps done on those days, but for the rest of the week is pretty sedentary? Like, what would be your recommendation in terms of building a habit of movement for that type of golfer?
So we're talking about kind of your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Habits would be just like we said earlier, work out your daily step count. How can we increase it by 1,000 steps a day? Just start with 1,000 steps a day. That should be an extra 10 minutes. Shouldn't be much at all, whether that's not jumping in the car to go to the shops and just walking there and back. So it's still a task that you need to complete, but how can we kind of optimize doing that task? Or is it just setting an alarm every other hour when you're sat down at home working, and just stand up for 10 minutes, and then get back down to doing what you're doing. So it's not a massive task out of your day. Like we've said before, none of these things none of these have barriers to entry. It's something that you could easily do, right? Like, I'm standing now, I could easily be sitting on the chair. I'm standing doing a podcast, so I'm burning more calories than I would be if I was just sitting down. It's just little things like that. Look at kind of your average steps, work it out, go, right, how can I increase these just by a few thousand? And how can we get into that? It's the same as mobility. Like, if you can get into a habit of kind of getting 10,000 steps a day, you should feel fantastic. I think me and you were talking about it last week, that some of our best thoughts for business and sorting out arguments you might have had with friends and family, they happen when you're moving. Not when you're sat down thinking about it. When you're just moving and thinking about other things, like, your mind finds a way to fix all these other problems and stuff. So get out there, you will feel fantastic. And especially now in England, the weather's getting a bit better. We're not stuck in the rain. You just get moving. Just get moving.
Yeah, like, movement is like gold, really. Yeah. Like, I think there's so much that we get. We're gonna go for it. I'm going for a win here. I've gone. There's so much we can get from all the things that are free for most of us, like, living in comfortable situations of like fresh air, being able to walk and water, like, they're all so good for us. Like, I just think the movement is, so many amazing things happen when you avoid being sat down for long periods, right? Obviously a lot of bad stuff happens when you sat down for a long period, but a lot of good stuff happens when you're not sat down. The difference of being stood up to being sat down in terms of like a working environment, obviously your productivity is going to be higher, your thought processes are much clearer, your ideas flow a lot easier. A lot of top businesses have meetings of walking, standing, like, it's promoted, like, it's known to be scientifically better to be in a standing position or moving position than it is to be seated for thought process like that. Also, in the way that when we're standing, we promote movement, right? So instead of being sat down and being static, if you're stood up, you promote movement. You're going to shift, you're going to fidget, you're going to move around more, you're going to buckle, and that's why we end up burning more calories than we do sat down. Yeah. Sitting down is comfortable, right? It basically makes you just be still, and obviously bad things happen when we're just being sedentary like that. So I think if you can shift from being sat down to being standing as much as possible, that's amazing. Obviously then, we're talking about steps, quantity of steps, quality of movement. But I had someone ask me from the golf school the other week, like, is it okay that if instead of get my steps I go for a bike ride, like, is that okay? And I was like, well, yeah. Like, we don't need to, like, we're not just trying to hit this step number, we're thinking like overall movement of like, how active am I throughout a day? Yeah. Like, that's the goal. Right?
If you love going swimming, go for a swim. Yeah, if you love going for a bike ride, go for a bike ride. If you love jogging, go for a jog. Go for a walk. Like, whatever movement that you like. If you like dancing, just dance. Put some music on and just dance. Like, do whatever makes you feel good. Whatever's you're going to want to do, just do it. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how stupid or whatever the thing that is going to get you moving the most, and that you might enjoy it, do it. Some of us might not. There's a lot of my clients that really hate walking, that hate moving, so it becomes a bit more of a chore. So then you need to find other ways to get them there. That's why these smaller goals help to get to that bigger picture. But just move as much as you can.
One of my favourite ones for people who hate doing that type of stuff. Go and do some short game practice, but only use one ball.
Yeah.
I get you walking.
Oh. Never thought about that.
Short
That's
game practice,
fantastic.
one ball. There you go.
Yeah.
Go do an hour short game practice. You're basically walking for an hour.
Go to the range, have one ball.
You know what,
Do some driver practice, hit
to
one
be
ball.
fair, yeah. To be fair, I was actually when I was living in Bournemouth for a while. The driving range there was like bring your own balls.
Yeah,
was the
there's
driving
quite
range.
a few rounds here, to
And,
be fair, that like that.
Yeah, and you actually walk around and collect your own balls.
It's great exercise.
So there you go. Also, I think just understanding the benefits of moving more is going to be useful for people as well. So like as we're adding this habit in, obviously it's going to be better for weight management. It's going to be better for overall movement, mobility,
Joint health,
pain, joint health, all this stuff. Like amazing stuff happens, and also just be fitter for golf as well. Like even if you can't go and play, go for an hour's walk, 2 hours walk. It definitely makes playing golf a lot easier. So habit number 3 we're going to stack on is going to be, what were we saying? 10,000 steps, improved movement, however you want to word it. Like the goal is going to be 10,000, obviously.
Yeah.
And again, like optimal will be 10,000 steps a day.
If you're already at
standing
10,000,
best, yeah. But if you can just stand, as you said, great example, just set your alarm every hour, stand up, move a little bit, sit back down.
Yeah.
Better than nothing.
Absolutely. All of these things we're saying is better than doing absolutely nothing.
Agreed. So habit number 3, move more.
Move more. Move more.
So we've got strength train 1 to 4 times a week. Mobility every day.
Every day.
Some kind of movement, couple of minutes
Couple of minutes a day.
And we're going to move more.
And we're just going to move more.
Perfect. Let's talk in that case about morning routines.
Morning routine.
And evening routines. Anything? This is something you talk about clients with? I talk to every client about this.
I talk to clients about it 100%, and it probably ties into my mobility. My morning routine: wake up, big glass of water, stretch. Always just 5 minutes. 5 minutes before I do anything else. 5 minutes mobility, and then I'll do some journaling and some other bits. Evening routine pretty similar, to be fair. Mobility, and then I'll reflect on my day, journaling.
That is weird. We've never spoken about morning routines, and our morning routines are very similar. How
really?
Yeah. Again, so golf fitness school routines. The guys, what I say to the guys all the time, they have to get up in 3. So when their alarm goes off, they go out of bed in 3 minutes or less.
Yep.
So no snoozing the alarm. Then they have to do a cold glass of water.
Yep.
And then if they do have coffee, then obviously they can have their coffee with that. And then their third habit that stacks onto it is some kind of protein at breakfast, which links us on a little bit more to the nutrition side. But in previous schools, I've also added journaling and movement, like some kind of flowy stretching based routine. But yeah, mine looks similar to that. I get up, cold glass of water, stretch, journal, coffee. Yep. Like it doesn't take long.
No, that's the thing. And what's actually, so I'm up out the house 3-4 days a week. I'm out the house by 6:10. The days where I don't do that, I feel way worse. Even if I've had to set my alarm a little bit earlier, 5-10 minutes earlier, to do that mobility, and then go about with my day. The days I don't do that, I feel noticeably worse. I'm noticeably less focused with my sessions or work or whatever that might be. It's like a lot of these things that if you can get these habits right, you'll notice, like you just feel so much better about yourself. And it's not just physically, like a lot of this stuff is mental fitness that I think we're talking about. Like Joe mentioned, cognitively, you focus so much more the more you're moving, the more you're hydrated, the more protein. Like all of these things tie into you just performing overall better, not just in the gym or on the course.
I think also, like, if you get the morning right, you've started your day. Like, there will be a reason why you didn't do those habits that morning, right? So for you, like, you've got a pretty set morning routine. There'll be a reason why you didn't do those habits that day. It might be because you woke up a little bit late, or you snoozed your alarm, or whatever. A decision was made for you not to do those habits, which then means you're going to follow that decision path for the rest of the day. It's
setting the tone for the day and starting it off with a win, which I think for clients is massive. It's a right, perfect. Started the day off great. I can now continue with this and take that into the rest of my practice throughout the day.
I was going to say, I started the day terribly. The rest of it,
Absolutely.
follow, right? Like,
absolutely.
Today's right off.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So if we're going to set some kind of morning habit, I think it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
But I think doing something first thing in the morning to set your day off.
For you, just for you.
Yeah. Even if that's like sitting with a coffee for 2 minutes and just doing nothing for 2 minutes. Like you've consciously done something for yourself.
Yeah.
That's going to move you forward for that day. So let's add that in. Habit number 4.
Habit number 4.
Morning routine. Do something for you.
Do something for you.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
What other habits can people adopt? Let's think some out. Let's brainstorm some out. Because we've got 5 good ones. We obviously done warm up. That is one we could potentially add if we're saying...
Warm up we can talk about, but we spoke about it in the podcast about something's better than nothing. Do something that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're nursing an old injury or something, then just spend a little bit more time on that. It's the same for the mobility stuff. If you feel like you're nursing a bit of a back injury, spend a bit more time stretching out your back, doing something a bit more focused for you.
So what if we said, linking it all in, why don't we say before we go and do anything, before we go and play golf, before we go and practice, before we go and train, before we go and have a work meeting, before we go and do anything, we just take a little bit of time to become present to what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Example, we were getting set up for this podcast today. We were doing a million other things coming around, and then we tried to like get set up for this, and we were getting confused, whatever. And I almost just, I think I actually said it out loud. So like, right, I'm actually gonna like
just breathe,
switch on now.
Yeah.
Like actually, we're actually gonna do something here now. I actually need to engage with what I'm gonna do. It's almost like a warm up for what we're gonna do, right? It's the same for golf practice. Like you might go to the range after work and have a like awful day, loads of stuff like been going on, and sometimes you can just take a minute and say, right, I'm at the driving range now.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna take 1 second just to focus.
Recheck in,
yeah. Be present. I'm here at the golf course.
There'd be a lot of kind of yoga practitioners or different coaches that would say, right, you're just grounding yourself. You're taking some time. You just take a deep breath in. Right, I'm at the range, or I'm at the putting green. I'm at the gym. I'm going to have the best practice that I can possibly have, and I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to be present in the moment. If you can apply that to kind of each aspect of your day, whether it's, like you said, going into a business meeting, or potentially there's a task at work that you've been putting off, and just kind of psyching yourself up, checking in and going, well, right, I'm going to do this. You will find that you'll probably execute it a lot better than having just, right, I'm out the car, I'm on the range, I'm hitting balls, I've got to go home, I've got to cook dinner. Right, just kind of, yes, you might feel like there's 101 things to do. Just take your time, enjoy the process. Enjoy the process.
It's like a mental warm up, right? You're basically warming yourself up mentally for the task that's at hand. That might include some kind of physical warm up, depending on what you're doing, if that's gym or practice or play, whatever. But being present and setting the tone for the activity you're going to do. Great habit. Love that habit. Okay, cool. So I think we've got some pretty good habits. We listed out a good couple there. How do we break bad habits? Because bad habits are powerful, right? Like, we can learn a lot from bad habits because we find it a lot easier to ingrain bad habits. Checking your phone, bad habit. We're deemed as bad habit, but if we're going to call it bad habit. Eating junk food, bad. Smoking, bad. So many bad habits that are so easy to like sit with us, and people know that they have bad habits. We're fully aware of them. Yeah. We fully know that they're bad for us, but we just keep on doing it. So why don't we find it as easy to set good habits as we do to ingrain bad habits? And what can we do, or what advice can we give to people listening to this of how to ingrain good habits in and break bad habits?
To ingrain good habits in is finding some way of keeping yourself accountable. So whether that's with your friends, with a partner, with a coach you're working with, try and find a way that you can stay accountable to that. Using positive self-talk rather than using negative self-talk. These things are just going to try and help get us into those positive habits, rather than beating yourself up for where you are. So you're going, God, I'm only doing 3,000 steps a day, or I just had a really bad practice at the range. Try and change your narrative, change how you're talking about yourself, and just try and be a bit more positive about that. Going, I've only done 3,000 steps today, but actually I had a really tough day, and tomorrow I'm going to be better.
How weird is it that we'd never have to do that for a habit like checking your phone, for example?
Yeah.
It's not a bit like, right, you guys just need to watch out on me. Like, I've only checked my phone 3 times today. I need to check my phone 50 times. Please, can you keep on top of me for checking my, and being really kind to yourself that okay, I need to check my phone. Like, please, guys, please be careful for making sure I check my phone more. It would never happen, right? Yeah. So it's almost like these good habits we need to go through so much more.
They're much harder, yeah.
To actually ingrain, right?
Yeah.
But maybe we can learn something from bad habits and learn the tricks. So, for example, every time you open your phone, the reason why you're so addicted is you get a little dopamine hit. Yeah, maybe a text message, maybe someone liked your photo on Facebook. I don't know. What is it, like 2004? I don't know. Someone followed you on TikTok. I don't know. It's something a bit more modern. But you get instant hit of dopamine. And even when you check your phone and there's nothing there, you can do that 10 times, and then the one time there is something there, you get that dopamine hit again, and it forces you back, right? So we can obviously use the dopamine hit in other ways, like what you said, like building streaks and being consistent with things and rewarding ourselves and getting little bits of good feedback. But I suppose the hit is never going to be as high, right? Like we're never going to. You hit work out, oh great, like. But then maybe if you post that photo in a group or a community, or share that photo on Facebook, and you get, oh well done or whatever, or like, oh you look great, or you shoot a low score and you get congratulated, like then that maybe is the buzz that we need. But we don't get that every single time we need to go and do that action. Every time you need to go and practice your short game, you've not got someone there saying, go on, you're doing great, I'm so proud of you. Well, you just got to keep doing it, and then eventually the result will come. And that's why it's so difficult, right? That's why we find it so hard to ingrain these, like in brackets, good habits. But I suppose there's other stuff we can learn of, like, it's so easy to check your phone, right? I literally without even touch my hands, I can look at my phone
and it all
and
lights
it knows
up.
It's my face and it lights up. Like
they make it so hard not to.
Exactly. So little things like having your gym kit ready, or making sure you got your trainers by the door if you want to go to the gym, or making sure that you maybe do your short game practice before you do your long game practice if you want to try and sort your practice out. Like little things to make it easier for you to hit those targets, like to stop yourself getting in your own way, right? Removing as many barriers as possible. Just think of it as like your hand-free phone dopamine hit. Is a good way of doing it. Breaking bad habits. Fan of punishment? Fan of I don't know. How would you break bad habits for people?
I don't know if I approach it in that way, rather than I would try to reinforce positive habits. And I think in time we're going to break those bad habits. I think it kind of goes back to when we were talking about nutrition. I never want to say to people, right, I don't want you doing this. It's going to lead them to do it more. What you want to try and use the narrative saying, maybe we try and do this. This might be a bit better for us. Rather you saying, right, you should do this. It's changing the word and go, oh, actually, you might be a little bit better if we do this. And then hopefully we're creating the positive habits at the same time with breaking the bad ones. I'm not a big fan of punishment, no. I think that I've always been a coach to kind of know that there's a lot of stuff going on with a lot of people, and it's easy for me to sit there and go, right, I want you to get 10,000 steps a day, we're going to hit 1,600 calories, and I want you to go to the gym 3 times a week, without actually knowing that there's tons of other things going on in their life. Saying what good is it going to do if, say, if they've missed a workout, going, right, well, now the workout you're going to do is twice as long. I'm just not a big fan of that. Never really have been. Yeah,
I'm not a fan of, like, I suppose you went on 2 bits there, like we're not a fan of punishing bad habits, but we're also not a fan of punishing not committing to good habits, right? Like I don't think punishment works at all. And I like what you said there as well about, like, there's other things going on in people's lives, and that's what I always try and consider when I give people stuff. Like, for example, I had a guy come in the studio last week, and he was like, I want to start with my strength training, I want to start with doing this. I was like, well, what are you currently doing? He was like, I currently do nothing. I was like, okay, we've got a problem then, because there's obviously a reason why you're not doing anything at the moment. If you're that motivated to do it, like, it's not just because you don't know what to do that you're not doing anything, right? There's obviously something going on there that means you don't currently perform these actions. So there's always something going on that's stopping people performing these habits, and getting to the bottom of that is obviously important. A method I like for decreasing bad habits is the same way that we don't perform good habits, which is some kind of barrier, right? I'm going to go for a run. Oh, where am I? Gym? Oh, forget it. Forget it, tomorrow, right? It's easy, right? In the same way that, maybe I want to snooze my alarm. Oh, the alarm's all the way over the side of the room. Then I've got to stand up. Then I'm out of bed. Oh, okay, fine, I'll get up. Like we've created some kind of barrier to that, like just really leaning over, clicking snooze, and going back to sleep. If you are bad for your phone and you don't like using your phone a lot, put your phone in another room.
Sleep. One that's been really massive for me with clients, and that I've started doing the past 4 months, is sleep with my phone in a different room. Because it stops you waking up and sitting on your phone and sitting in bed for however long, just scrolling through stuff. Yeah,
or even like just sitting relaxing watching TV or whatever. Like it just shows that these habits can be broken by just creating some small barrier in between them. So if there is a habit, whatever that habit is, and we haven't even, I don't want to go as far as saying what is a good habit and what is a bad habit. Maybe checking your phone for you is a good habit. I don't know. Maybe it stops you, doing something that you shouldn't be doing elsewhere. But the point is, whether it's a good habit or a bad habit, the barrier between that will obviously be a huge factor. So if it's a good habit, We want to reduce the barriers as much as possible. And if it's a bad habit, we want to introduce some barriers just to kind of create some friction.
Agreed.
Is a good word for that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So moving on for future work on habits, what do you think people should go through in terms of being able to kind of fit this stuff into their life? So are we talking maybe about prioritizing these good habits? Are we talking about prioritizing reducing your bad habits? Like, let's say, for example, we spread this over the week. We've obviously got our strength training 1 to 4 times a week. We've got our mobility in there. We've spoken about steps and movement. We spoke last week about nutrition.
Yep, we spoke about just being grounded and being present before we're going to do something.
Exactly. So, like, if we're struggling for time, we're trying to fit this all into our week.
Yep.
Where can we go? Like, where do we prioritize? What's your advice for people putting this together? I've got some thoughts, but I want to hear your ideas first.
I think it goes back to personal preference, right? If you're someone that doesn't have time to maybe get to the gym, but you really like going for a walk, then prioritize your walking. Then don't beat yourself up for not going to the gym. There's always going to be kind of curveballs and different things that come into place. Prioritize what's going to make you feel the best. You're never going to have your perfect week of training where you've got X amount of hours and you can do exactly what you want. It's never going to happen. There's always going to be something that gets in the way of that, with work or family or whatever that may be, different commitments. So prioritize what makes you feel good the most. That's what I would say. What about you? You've said you've got some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff that doesn't take time.
Yeah.
And I think whenever someone gives me the excuse for not getting something done, where actually I don't think it's taken any time to do that. Like, I don't think it takes any time to be grounded to the task you're about to perform, right? It's just, some people are very good at it. Some people are very good at, like, forgetting everything's happened and switching on to that exact moment, that exact thing. Something I try and get better at. Because I don't think it takes any time. I think it doesn't take any time at all for you to suddenly say, this is the task I'm going to perform. I'm just going to take 30 seconds to sort myself out to perform this task at the best of my ability, whether that's your practice, whether that's a work meeting, whether that's your workout, whatever it is. It doesn't really take any time out of your week. So I don't think there's any real excuse for not doing that apart from forgetting or whatever it will be, right? I think there's also no excuse in terms of a time constraint for making better nutrition choices. Whenever you're in a moment with an opportunity to make a decision, some people just have managed to build good habits of making good decisions in the moment. It's something that I try and preach to all of my clients as well. When you're dealt with a situation where you've got to make a decision one way or the other, you've got an opportunity to make it a good decision. So take that decision at that time, because it's not going to take you any more time out of your week to make that decision. I think it then depends on where your priorities are going to lie. You know, if you're generally pretty active and you move a lot, then probably prioritize your strength training over the mobility.
Yeah.
If you sit at a desk all week and, you know, whatever, then, you know, maybe try and find 5 minutes in your evening. I think it's all going to depend, but I would definitely say try and include all of this stuff and just reduce the quantity of it down, rather than saying, oh, you know what, forget
I'm not going to do it at all.
I'm just going to do like half an hour a day mobility. Probably not the best approach, right? And same vice versa. So I think having a balance of everything but reducing it right down is going to be a better choice than
doing
picking
nothing
something.
at all.
But you know, there's definitely stuff here that time doesn't affect it. So get those things right if you can.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Let's head on to some questions.
Oh, the guy's been pinging something.
The guys have pinged, and actually I think we've just dealt with one of them. Robbie French, you have the best habits possible, but how do you deal with the weekly curveballs you face that knock your routine? Really interesting, which is almost what we've just said. There's always going to be something that's going to come in the way, and how do you deal with that? One, it's not beating yourself up that you haven't done something. So maybe you've had a range practice in that you wanted to do and a meeting's run over or whatever it is. Don't beat yourself up for not doing it, because it wasn't like it was in your control. Unless you've simply decided and you were just lazy and said, right, I'm not going to go to the range, maybe you've got some accountability there. But if something came up, like, don't beat yourself up. Go, right, how can I then tinker something for the rest of my week to try and get that in? What else can I potentially maybe sacrifice to have that?
Yeah, I agree. And I think also taking ownership for that, like, is that, it says here, like, how do you deal with the weekly curveballs you face that knock your routine? I think you've got to determine, is that an internal or external fact? Like, did you not do it because you couldn't be bothered?
Yes.
Which is also your decision, right? Like, you actually do have a decision over all of these things, and taking ownership for that is important. Or is it something completely out of your control? If it's out of your control, it's out of your control. You just like get back into your habits and routine as quickly as possible. What I would definitely recommend not doing is trying to chase it. So if something gets in the way and say I see this when I go to fitness school sometimes. Like when people have something that gets in the way and they can't get a workout done, they might try and cram it in later in the week, and then they get messed up, and then they get fatigued, whatever. But actually, if you've got your habits in place, just get as quickly as possible back
into it. Yeah,
because you know that your habits over time are going to be like, and that's kind of having more of a long term mindset rather than a short term fix. Great question from Rob. So James Lawless has put in a question on pre and on course nutrition, which I would love to do a podcast.
I think we need to do a podcast separate on that.
We'll definitely do one. We can give a quick answer.
Hydrate and protein.
I like hydrate and protein. I kind of say to people, eat whatever the hell you want, like before and during, but just leave the sugary stuff to the last 3 hours.
Yes.
Like,
you don't want that insulin spike middle of the round.
Yeah, I
think
think
just feel fatigued.
Just go sugar for the last 3 holes, and then just eat normal food for the rest of it. I don't think there's anything really. There's no real metabolic strain in golf.
No.
There's no real kind of need for optimizing fat oxidation. Like literally just walking. To be honest, like generally, as long as you're not getting mentally or physically fatigued from the lack of nutrition, which I think is more important, or lack of hydration. Yeah. I don't think you can go too far wrong. But I did only ask that question half an hour ago, so thanks for anyone who did chuck that in.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Well done. We can always lean on Team Macro Golf. So we are going to do a couple of other topics moving forward, but if anyone's got any recommendations for topics or requests for topics, Sam, how do they get hold of you? Because you have recently changed your Instagram.
I have recently changed my Instagram. I am Sam_macrogolf.
Yes, he is. Joe_macrogolf, so they can drop us a message on Instagram.
Drop us a DM on Instagram.
The Macro Golf page has also changed. That's now at macro.golf. So if anyone wants to get hold of us, they can get hold of us on there. Any requests for podcast topics in the future, just let us know, or any general questions.
Any general questions, any helps on how to build habits or break bad habits, just shoot us a message and we'll see if we can help you guys out.
Definitely. See you guys next time.
Peace.